It's the same old story. It's been a long day at the job, or maybe it's just starting to feel long, and you feel that urge to stretch your legs and get a little bit of a break. You walk down the street, or maybe you get behind the wheel of your car, and you feel the weight begin to lift. You walk through the doors, and the sound of the place starts to clear the air. You get a table, you order your drink, you listen to the sounds of the bar, and soak in the conversation. Welcome to the TNE Speakeasy, with your hosts, Caleb, Isaac, and Brianna. Listen in as I discuss the 1996 film, Evita.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, those in between and affiliated to the Non-Obsoletist. And today we have a brand new series. Caleb, what are we doing here today?
Yes, we're finally kicking off. We've been talking about it for a while, about doing a series covering musicals. And I believe at the moment we only have 3 booked.
But we're going to do 100.
Yeah, I guess if it's a success, we'll expand out and cover some more. But we're starting today with Brianna's pick, which was Evita. I'm excited to hear some more details about that, but I know for you, Isaac, I guess you wanted the front to cover some of the criteria of what counts as a musical for these types of picks.
Right. Yes. No. This is definitely fair because you know me. I'm a Sith Lord who deals in absolutes.
Stickler.
And I was say exactly stickler. I'm only trying to question how can we determine the litmus test, we have to lay out rules to determine what counts as a musical and what does not count as a musical. Because you and I had this like the other day, saying, okay, well, what counts? What counts and what doesn't count? Because even I was like, okay, well, I don't know exactly what my pick is going to be. I have one, of course, but I don't know what I was going to do initially. And I was like, well, what counts as this? Like, for instance, from a few years ago, like Bohemian Rhapsody or Rocket Man, or recently I Want to Dance with Somebody. Do those count, even though those are biopics, or like Ray? Do those count as as musicals because they are about like an artist's life, or are they something else? And you came up with a term, or at least you have that term. What is that term, Sarah?
Yeah, I think those ones were called jukebox musicals. I think.
I don't like that.
I'm not 100% sure. I remember we did go and look at the whatever the Wikipedia criteria was, which I'm not sure how official that is for our series here, but
grain of salt, please, ladies and gentlemen, those opinion on Philly, grain of salt, keep that in mind. For another one, for instance, is like Sing, the Illumination movie. That would also probably count as like a jukebox musical, even in a way, I guess, like Guardians of the Galaxy as well, just because they have a mixtape or
oh no, see this this is where it's getting lost.
But that's just like music playing in the background, not like anybody singing.
Exactly.
Well, no, because sometimes Peter Quill is singing the songs, depending, like in that.
Oh,
okay,
no.
But like any movie where someone like sings along to a song becomes a musical, like that's too much of a stretch.
Yeah, see this is why I wanted to start with this, because I feel like even though I wouldn't have guessed we'd had to make some criteria, and knowing Isaac and he likes to bend the rules around the corners. So I feel like we gotta lay something down.
I don't like to bend the rules necessarily. I like to at least talk about like, okay, we have to find where are the borderlines. Where is the line to draw? Okay, like make sure that we find no loopholes or anything like that. I'm trying to prevent myself from creating a loophole in this. So it's like, so what, Caleb, in your mind, or at least for what we're defining it as, what is a musical?
Maybe this is too rigid, but I tend to think that a musical is something that kind of exists outside of our normal existence. They just live in a universe where people express their big emotions, or in something like this, which is essentially an opera. Just all the dialogue is all just expressed in song, and that's just normal. It's not like we're going to see a stage performance, something like that.
There's lots of musicals that all the dialogue isn't in song, though. There's lots of musicals where some of the dialogue is spoken.
Yeah, I would say most musicals, and that's one of the things that differentiates this movie, is most of them are kind of mainly dialogue interspersed with songs. to express big emotions or big kind of moments. Whereas this, more of an opera style. The whole thing is essentially singing, with occasionally, I guess, just for impact, a couple moments here or there, just regular spoken dialogue. Well, which I like. I wish that we see more movies doing this, but I really couldn't think of too many more examples.
Jesus Christ Superstar?
Oh, I never saw that one. But that's at least the criteria that I came up with. I don't know if you two agree, but
I think a musical, something counts as a musical if people sing in a situation where it wouldn't be normal for them to sing, which is kind of what you said, but less specific. Like, I would say, like, for example, Isaac said, like, the Sing movie. I would say that doesn't count because, like, they're singing a lot, but, like, they're only singing, like, they're performing.
yes.
Like, they're singing on purpose, and it makes sense. Whereas, like, lots of other Disney movies, like, I don't know, like Cinderella, I would say would count because they're singing in, like, a random situation where people in the real world wouldn't be singing.
Yeah, it's like a touch of, like, magical realism or something, where you just have to accept that that's just how it exists in this world. People just do that. And by the way, I wish I did live in that world. I wish that people would just burst out in a song
Yeah.
when they're having a bad day or a good day, or like in this movie when they're just pronouncing things. Like me and Brianna were commenting because we watched this together, that we love when they're announcing Perron as the new president, that they're just singing it out. It's like, oh, wouldn't that be so much more fun? Ah, what a nice world that'd be.
What doesn't count is like the Enchanted movie, because that one really is trying to like make fun of the fact of these kind of things where it's like, oh, isn't like they like to point out, hey, singing out loud in person is stupid. That was the whole like, thing of that movie. That's not true.
Well,
It's something else.
I would say Enchanted is technically a musical, but, like, I also agree with you that, like, it's kind of making fun of musicals and it's, like, self-aware, so it's not really the same.
Yeah, that's when it becomes like a gray area, because it's a meta kind of joke movie playing up with the musicals.
Look at us, we're postmodern, we hate musicals. Anyway.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, get out of here. Sorry.
I don't know if that's true. I like that movie, at least the first one.
Really?
No, that's definitely fair.
That first movie's kind of fun.
It's okay.
I didn't see the second one.
It wasn't very good.
Yeah, it was actually quite poor. Really strange.
It was quite shocking, honestly, that everybody came back for that.
Yeah.
I guess Mary Poppins would also count as a musical.
Yeah, I would say Mary Poppins counts.
Yeah, but maybe moving away from the criteria, moving on to the pick for today, Evita.
What, we can't talk about it for an hour?
Actually, wait hang on a second. I just realized another thing. You guys heard the term, like, diegetic?
Yeah.
I haven't.
Yeah, it means, diegetic, it means, like, sound that the people in the movie can hear and us can hear. It's not just, like, background score.
Oh, yeah. I get what you mean.
So, in this case, anything that is diegetic, in that the players of the piece, with, like, the people inside the movie itself, whether it's coming from them or somebody else, that is like it is recognized by the narrative itself as it being a musical. So that's another piece of the criteria. Moving on.
Yeah, and just to start with this movie, I did want to start with our kind of initial experience coming into this movie. I guess I'll start with myself, because it kind of leads into Brianna's. But I'd never really heard of this movie much until I met Brianna. This is something that would come up very frequently and has still come up very frequently throughout our time together all these years. And I can't remember if we just watched it just to watch it, or if we were doing like a musical series at the time just between the two of us. But yeah, we've definitely watched it a number of times together, and my appreciation for it has grown each time I watched it. So thank you for showing it to me. But that goes over to you, Brianna. What was your first time seeing this, if you remember, and what your experience is with it?
Well, I've been watching it since I was a kid. I'm pretty sure I remember the first time I watched it, which was at my grandparents' house. My mom was born in Argentina. Like, we're not Argentine. Like, my grandma's German, but my mom was born in Argentina, and she lived there, until she was, I think, 5. And so I kind of had I was interested in it because my mom was from Argentina, and my grandma showed it to me, and she really liked it. And she was living in Argentina at this time, I believe, at the time where Eva Perón was, actually existing.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not 100% sure if she lived there at the time, but I know that her husband, my grandpa who died before I was born, he grew up in Argentina. So I remember my uncle Dick, his brother, telling me that they went to school, and like when they went to school, like they would learn about her in school, and this was like when they were in power. So it was kind of interesting. But anyways, yeah, I've just always liked the musical since my grandma showed it to me when I was a kid, and I was, you know, a little nerd kid, and I loved singing, and like I would learn the music, and I sang it in the talent show. And my mom always listened to the, like, I don't have experience just with the movie. I've never seen the play. Unfortunately, I've never had the chance to, but I've heard, you know, the concept album and the album from when it played in the West End, and I think the Broadway album as well. So, but I grew up hearing lots of different versions of the songs too. So, yeah, that's the end of my story.
And I've gone on to hear many of those versions just driving around in the car, with them popping up. At least a couple of them. But how about you, Isaac? What were your kind of experience coming into this thing?
I am amazed to hear, Brianna, your history with this entire series and how it actually may tie into your family history as well. And here I come in as an ignorant and a person who has watched this film today and only has experienced it once and never even knew about it, and then did some research, and oh boy, this movie. Oh my.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, Isaac, because I started thinking, and I was like, is this really the case? But is this our first time covering anything with Antonio Banderas in it?
I believe, if we're not counting talking about him briefly in Dial of Destiny, then no.
Oh, I completely forgot that he was in that.
Our first time talking about Mr. or Senor Banderas.
Yeah, and that's surprising, because growing up, I feel like I used to see this guy all the time. I'd watch a lot of stuff that he was in. And when I saw this movie for the first time, I was like, oh wow, like this is a great role for him playing Che here. I think he's so charming. I love having him as the kind of almost host for the movie, like a narrator and a host, just always passing through, playing different characters. I think that kind of role is also quite interesting in a musical movie. I feel like you'd see that more on the stage, but I can't think of too many.
Well, I mean, it's adapted from a stage musical.
Yeah, I can't think of too many film musicals that have that kind of presence in it.
Hercules?
Hercules.
Yeah.
Like, because of the muses?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Yep. No, you're right.
Same kind of thing.
Yep.
And I don't know. Obviously, it's very brief, but we have that. We have that guy in the intro of Aladdin, where he talks about, you know, when he was Arabian. I don't know if that probably shouldn't count, but he's like,
it sort of counts.
He's our. Yeah, he kind of introduces us to the entire world. He doesn't go through. He doesn't narrate the whole piece, but he at least introduces us to that. So it's like, and I guess some of those Renaissance films were kind of. I think there was a. I don't know who the like unknown narrator was in the beginning of Beauty and the Beast, but they had they opened us up with a story of how the Beast was. Well, the prince was turned into the Beast.
Oh yeah,
but maybe not the same thing. I think that's not the same way.
Yeah, it's a little different. Well, I think it's like moderately unique the way that they kind of like weave him into the story where he plays like all different characters, but still kind of the same character at the same time. I've seen a lot of people say it's gimmicky, but I've always liked it.
Yeah, it is funny that you mentioned, because I was going to bring up some of that Disney Renaissance stuff, because I'm not sure about Andrew Lloyd Webber, but I know Tim Rice, the one who wrote all the lyrics for this, had some work with the Disney Renaissance stuff. I think it was Aladdin, and I can't remember the other one. So yeah, maybe he was bringing some of that kind of stage history to those movies. Maybe I'll quickly look up Andrew Lloyd Webber. You guys keep going, because I feel like he did too, but I can't remember now that I'm thinking about it.
I'm not familiar with Webber doing any of anything related or regarding did the Disney Renaissance. Of course, you know I can be incorrect on that, but I mean this film though. I don't want to get into too much because this is very similar. It's funny because I don't want to get to my pick, but given that my pick is also an Andrew Lloyd Webber, or Sir, sorry, he's knighted, Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's an Andrew Sir Webber's one of his pieces. I could not help but like compare it to that play or that theater stage piece.
Oh, interesting. Would you like to spoil at least the title, or would you like to just hold off?
Yes, title of course, kind of obvious if everybody knows me this far into Novice Elitist. And my pick is going to be Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And
Mm.
you're like, what kind of was there a theatrical? No, there wasn't. It's just like I don't know. There's a video production of it out there, but it's I think a stage production rather than like what this is, or similar to like what Rent is.
Not that Rent movie. Ooh, hopefully that one doesn't come up for us.
That's not yeah, not like the Rent movie. Listen, I would have picked Wicked, but the movie's not out yet.
We if we keep going with this series, we could do it.
Definitely. But I'm saying that there were some similar. I found that this movie, and I guess I suppose like the stage or the music itself, maybe the music itself was kind of structured similarly, excuse me, to what Sir Weber does in Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Oh, I'm excited to find out. I've never seen that one.
I know it, but I can't. I don't see that, but I might when we actually watch it.
Yeah, but for this movie itself, where should we start here? Besides Antonio Banderas, who again I want to highlight. I think he's just so fun throughout this.
I know. I thought it was a great role for him. I just love him, and I'm not even that big of a fan of him normally, but I just love him for this movie.
Yeah, and he takes it he's so intense in some scenes and super funny in others. I think he's a great host. I want him to host some other things for me.
And I've said to you before, Caleb, that I listened to the original concept album of this musical, whatever it wasn't a musical when the concept album was made, and the character of Che was always like there was a lot more comedy in the concept album, and I always felt like a little disappointed that never came through even into the stage musical when they adapted it. But watching it today with that in mind, like there was more comedy than I thought. And most of that came from him.
Yeah, there were a number of good laughs throughout that we both had. I'm just curious, do they ever... Because now that I think about it, I don't think they ever say that it's supposed to be Che Guevara in there. Maybe in the credits.
They don't... I don't know if they make it clear in the stage musical. It's made clear in the concept album for sure. But by the time it got to the musical, from my understanding, it's more like inspired by, but not literally meant to be him. Although, he was Argentine, obviously.
I feel like you're about to say something there. I was about to jump in, but that's holding up for you.
Yeah, that's okay. So I gotta be careful how I say this. Obviously, so am I, looking up all this stuff on TV tropes? Yeah, I found out it was supposed to be Che Guevara, and I'm like, really? The revolutionary leader of Argentina, who has all those posters of like Revolution and all that stuff. And I was like, and they of course they credit Banderas as Che, just in the credits, so it could just be anybody, like it could be like anybody's name. I just prefer him as an everyman rather than like Guevara himself.
I agree, and I think like even in like the original concept, like they made him Che Guevara, but I feel like it was almost like a joke. I unfortunately didn't listen to the album recently. I was hoping to before we did this, but from what I remember, and I don't know that much about him, but I feel like there was a little bit of like poking fun at him in there, which was why he was Che Guevara originally, because they were kind of poking fun at the fact that he had a pretty strong capitalist background before he became a revolutionary.
Yeah, was that because I do remember some of the bits from that concept album. Is that where that insecticide thing came from? Was that involving him?
Yeah, I guess like because I looked it up when I heard it in the original version of the song. I was like, what's with this insecticide thing? But I guess he had like a bunch of failed capitalist ventures before he became a revolutionary. That was one of them. Yeah,
that line always stands out anytime the concept album version of that song plays. What's that song again?
The Kapow Die one.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what it's called, but...
Yeah, I can remember the name of it, but yeah, I always really like that song in general.
Because in the original song, when they're saying, like, Kapow Die, they're talking about it killing the bugs with the insecticide, too.
Yes. Yeah, very different contexts, and I like both versions a lot. I think it works really well in this movie.
Yeah.
But the more funny one also works.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Antonio Banderas during that song, he's really getting into it. Yeah, he's tearing up the screen during that bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the early part of the movie, well, I guess the whole movie in general, it's got such a like it's almost a more of a montage than a regular progressing movie
Mm-hmm.
with all this music kind of pushing you forward. I love the way they during that Kapow Die song. I guess it's the first revolution that takes place in the movie, and then in the middle of it, we get this random earthquake that strikes.
I always find that so funny how they're like, suddenly an earthquake.
The
Okay.
camera's shaking. Yeah, that was super funny every time I watch it.
I almost feel like it shouldn't be funny though, because it's like a serious thing, but it's like so out of left field.
Yeah. Well, what do you think of some of these early songs there, Isaac? Not really knowing what the style this was going to be coming in.
Well, they set up Evita's like rise to fame. I gotta be careful with how I say that, of course, because I know the political implications of this play. Okay, not like deeply or anything like that. Just obviously brief history, brief research. Like I don't know, like 20 minutes of research, but just enough to know that. I'll just say it. A lot of people in Argentina don't like this play or this film.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that is what it is. I don't know too much about the historical figure. All I know is I really enjoy this movie, and it's a musical version of a historical person, so it's never going to be the straight facts. You got to kind of take
Oh, of course. Yeah, no.
it's from this perspective. Even having the kind of narrator
Yeah.
pulling us through,
Mm-hmm.
it's showing that it's from a certain point of view.
And of course, it's understandable why. I mean, she's such a controversial figure. Of course, fictional version of her life set to music is also going to be very controversial.
Yeah, one playing with a lot with kind of gender politics and probably just regular politics at the time in Argentina, making fun of a lot of different types of folks. So, except for the working class, they don't really like to. They definitely keep the positive eye towards them, but mocking the upper class, the military class, which some of that stuff is really fun too in some of their songs. I like that the rich elite always have such a. How do you describe their way of singing? I don't know how to put it, but just that very snooty vibe.
Pompous,
Yeah.
stick up their butts. We're like holier than thou.
Yeah, it's super fun. I always enjoy those parts too.
Mm-hmm.
Or when they're calling her a bitch, the military guys. I think that's
Yeah.
pretty funny in that song.
Yeah, and it comes across very harsh, but in like a fun way.
Yeah, and you could see why they dislike her. I mean, it seems like Perron's definitely dating lower than maybe his what the standard would be for those folks, considering her reputation. But I guess there was that other general, or maybe not general, but other military guy that brought her there to the event when they meet.
That's true. But yeah, that's a good point actually.
But maybe they look down on that guy. We don't know. It's not his story.
I mean, he's also, lower down on the totem pole there, so maybe it's not as serious of a,
Yeah.
And that was more like it was like a fundraising event, it wouldn't be like a strictly upper class event.
Yeah, that's fair.
One thing I had to remind myself when watching the film itself, again, I hadn't listened to the concept album, the rock opera album, nothing like that. Is you have to actually pay attention to the dialogue or the lyrics, excuse me.
Yeah.
Because there is no dialogue; it's all in the lyrics. So you have to really pay attention and listen to what they're saying, and think a little broadly with what they're saying. And it's nothing too complex, and I will not say that Tim Rice's lyrics are simple or anything like that, but they're definitely like I think a general audience member could probably understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, that's something I didn't think about, because when I listen to music, I always concentrate on the lyrics. But yeah, I didn't think about the fact that a lot of people kind of zone out when songs are on rather than listening intently.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people who go to musicals and just kind of wait, like, okay, here's a song. When are we going to get back to the dialogue?
Yeah.
Get back to the story moving. But yeah, almost everything about this is unconventional storytelling-wise. Everything moving in montage, having this narrator, and non-stop music. Even when I'd feel like it'd be weird to look up individual songs in this, because sometimes I feel like it's just people doing their usual dialogue scene with just a little bit of music in the background.
Yeah.
It's not even really part of a regular song.
Yeah.
Which again, I appreciate. I wish they would do that kind of thing more.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's fun. And I was gonna say the beginning of the movie, I think, also is people are really thrown into it. I feel like
Yeah.
it's jumping back and forth in time quite a bit there, and the juxtaposition of her dad's funeral versus her own. But if you're just coming into the movie for the very first time, you're like, what is even going on right now?
Yeah, I was curious if Isaac, if you had any confusion during the first couple minutes there.
I definitely had confusion. I was like, okay, what the hey is going on? Because they didn't have any. Because first we start off in the theater, and I wonder if that was just the intention of getting us ready, like setting the scene and setting the mood, the atmosphere for like what we're about to get into.
Like time period.
Thank you very much. It's her death, and they say they do at least mention, they do give a date on her actual death. And then we quickly flash to like somewhere in like a small town or someplace like that, that has like a carriage moving about, which I guess the hearse, and it's somebody else. And then it says 1926. I'm like, what the hey? Why are we jumping back? And then I quickly realized, okay, I guess this is her as a young girl, and we're gonna then like I guess fast forward from here, and that's exactly what happened. So while it was kind of like whiplash, it's like what the hey happened there? I quickly regained my balance and was like, okay, I think I know what's happening without having to look anything up.
Yeah. I think they guide you along well enough that even if you're lost a little bit, once they kind of pull back and we move into a more regular progression of events with Evita, her rise to power and her ways of getting there. Yeah, I feel like it's easy to jump onto it.
Yeah, and I mean, as long as you're listening to the lyrics, I mean, like Antonio Banderas is literally telling you what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, there is a lot of clever lines in there, even though I feel like the lyrics are quite straightforward. I'm always surprised how they managed to pack them in there in time with the music. And occasionally, only a couple times did it feel like they're struggling to fit the word in time. Most of it is just so tightly put together. It's great.
How did you guys feel about Madonna playing a 15-year-old?
Oh.
Yeah, I read about that. I was like, or I realized that of like, okay, so when she goes to her father's funeral, and according to the internet, hope this is true, her date of birth is unknown. Not that, okay, she obviously like died at some point, but like,
yeah, I think there's like, I think I remember reading that like she like changed her birthday on her birth certificate to be younger, so no one really knows for sure.
So it's not just me saying it, so it sounds like, you know, I'm a crazy person. It's just like, okay, somebody else is saying it, so it's like there has to be some truth to that, just because, you know, we can't trust anything on the internet nowadays, including ourselves. So, but with, yeah, like she's like, I don't know, like maybe 5 or 6 or 7 when her father dies, and then it says 10 years later. So
yeah, the beginning of the movie, she's supposed to be 15. It's like, like, I get why they had Madonna do it. Well, first of all, because she probably wanted all the songs, but it would have been nice if they'd had a teenage actress for that part.
Yeah, it definitely does not look like she's 15. It looks like, okay, she's like 22, and now she's ready to go. Maybe 22 at the youngest. And I will say, as much as I do think I enjoy Madonna's performance in this, and I feel like, for the most part, I feel like this movie does a good job of setting itself in the period, but I can't stop staring at those eyebrows. I'm like, oh, that's the only clue besides the cast in general that really signals that, oh yeah, we're in the late 90s here.
Really? Have you ever seen a picture of Eva Perón? Because she has the same eyebrows.
Really, that thin and oof. I always find those kind of eyebrows off-putting.
I think they had Madonna looking like just like her. I mean, it depends. Like, I'm sure her eyebrows changed throughout time, but I think Madonna looked a lot like her.
Well, I find those eyebrows so pointy, I'd be afraid, I'd poke my eye out. No, that's just me. But I think I generally like her in this, and I think she does surprisingly well as an actress in it, compared to the only other example that I have, which is the James Bond movie that she cameoed in, Die Another Day, which she's terrible in. She did the opening song for that, and I like that song, but her little cameo, so badly acted.
Well, she sings the whole time in Evita, and like,
yeah,
acting and singing are like similar but not the same. But because it's singing the whole time, like, there's a kind of acting that you do while you're singing, which is not the same as like acting.
That's fair. And yeah, it was mainly the line reading in Die Another Day that was just terrible and awkward. So yeah, maybe having that ability to sing kind of couches her performance a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Because you convey emotions through song and like facial expressions, but it's not the same as like, you know, dialogue.
Yeah. Well, what'd you think of Madonna in this one, Isaac? I'm not sure if you've seen her acting much, or even I don't know if you're a fan of her music in general. I don't really know what your thoughts are on her.
I could say I wasn't a fan of her making that comment about was it Prince Harry and Meghan living in Victoria instead of living in LA. So I kind of just like boycotted her music for a while after that.
What?
That seems excessive.
And even then, I listened to like one of her songs on the radio the other day. I was like, this sounds vapid, and I don't really care. So I'm like, I'm good. I don't deny that she is the queen of pop, but like, I'm just like, I'm good. And I surprisingly, I did look up at least a picture of Evita herself. There's a similarity. It's one of those things where I'm like, okay, I do have that thing where I see a lot of like, even in different ethnicities, I see that some people have a similar facial structure. So it's like if they cast her because she actually does bear resemblance to Evita, it works. But obviously, if millennials and Gen Z want to like slam this movie as being racist for casting a white woman as an Argentinian, go ahead, like whatever.
Well, I mean, this is probably not politically correct to say, but I mean, everyone in Argentina is white. Argentina is like the whitest country in Latin America.
Interesting.
It's like basically all Europeans.
Yeah.
Like they like decimated their indigenous population.
Yeah, and Madonna is Italian, so that's some connection there, a vague connection, but
vague. Sure. I will say, like, I definitely, she sang like wonderfully. I read somewhere that one of the actors who portrayed Evita didn't like her performance because she had to go a few bars lower, or a few octaves lower than what the actual songs demand. Brianna, you could probably shed some light on that.
Well, I've heard so many different versions of the song, but because I grew up with this movie, like, I feel like more than anything, I'm usually comparing the other versions to this, even though obviously that's not really correct. So I would never think that. I would just see each song as like a different version, but not like better or worse. They are like all done in very different styles, I would say.
Yeah, and I'll say as someone who doesn't have that much experience with Madonna's music, I never, downloaded any onto my iPod back in the day, so it was just kind of whatever was on the radio. I never really got the sense that she had a great voice as a singer. And maybe that's just because I was hearing her later stuff from the early 2000s, which maybe not some of her best. But yeah, coming into this, I was surprised how much I appreciate her voice and how much she could carry some of the songs really emotionally. So I was like, oh, maybe I should give her a second look.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't, but maybe one day.
I would recommend her stuff from the 80s when she was, when it was her time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to be fair, I guess we missed our chance this year. Me and Brianna were actually supposed to go to...
We had concert tickets to see her.
Yeah, we were going to go see her, but yeah, it got canceled. I think that was during the summer, I think.
Yeah, and then it got rescheduled, but to when we're going to be in Mexico.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah, that's right. She had to go in for, like, I don't know if it was, like, medical purposes, but yeah, she, like, had something happen with her, so it's like, hopefully she's all right.
Yeah, I think she's on tour now, so I would assume she's okay.
And I was trying to think of some highlights for songs for her, but there's so many good ones. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I always feel like just the song that really can showcase female talent in that musical is always the Another Suitcase, Another Hall.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites for this. Both versions, I like them a lot.
It's just such a pretty song.
Yeah.
And, normally in the stage musical and probably the concept album, but I don't know for sure, it's not Evita singing that song. It's Perron's mistress that she kicks out is the one that's supposed to sing that whole song. But honestly, I think it's like just such a nice song. They just wanted to give it to Madonna.
And it's nice. I always like in musicals when you get a little reprieve from a different character saying the same, feeling the same emotion. I always think that's a nice thing to carry over. So I like that. But damn, that was the first scene where it's like, yeah, we've seen that she's been kind of, we've seen in a montage that she can be, kind of cold with all these men that she's using to propel herself up. But that scene was the first one where it's like, damn, she's cruel to this poor girl here.
I know, she's really a bully there. And like because like the last line in the song, "Don't ask anymore," like when Evita is singing it, you know, it's somebody says "Don't ask anymore" because he's gonna help her. Whereas it feels like when the other girl says it, she's just like, "Don't ask anymore, just leave, I'm tired of listening to you."
Yeah.
They do that song again right when she's like on her deathbed too.
Yeah, and that was a really pretty use of it. I like that a lot. That was the first time I, or at least I didn't remember them doing it like that before. So I was surprised hearing it on this viewing. And another song that I really like from early on, it and I think Brianna, you said that you didn't really care for this song or you think it's silly, but I always love the "On the Night of a Thousand Stars" song.
Yeah,
Especially the first version. It's so overwrought, and the guy is just so smug.
it is silly.
But it gets stuck in my head, and I just like it genuinely as a song. But his performance is a lot of fun too, as a silly old, almost washed up singer right before his one hit wonder routine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, any standout songs for you, Isaac?
You know, I don't know if I had any standout songs because I understood like most of like what the songs were saying, but for me, I think more what I was kind of wanting was, even though this movie is well made and whatnot. Don't worry, I think I'm done with the whole acting like the political common sense person or whatever. Like, hey, wait a minute, or the stereotypical millennial or Gen Z person. It's like I sound like the boy who cried wolf. It's like I think it's pretty
Cried
obvious
wolf.
that this movie is because I'm just full nonsense. I feel like when I was watching this, I was like, this movie is really well made. I'll say that. Like all the extras and like all the stuff in the background with like during the revolutions and or like military coups and all that stuff. I was like, man, this is really good. Like very good direction and like good choreography and all that stuff, and definitely feels believable. I don't know if we find this sort of like believability anymore nowadays in film. I don't know if you could do that anymore. It's just a different time. Even sometimes when like the police came in and started beating like the riders up with those batons, I'm like, geez, that looks realistic. I was hoping that wasn't the case, of course, but like looks
Yeah, they were beating the extras.
it's like that scene in Titanic. But for me, whenever the music was going on, I was like, I kind of want to. I didn't almost maybe okay, maybe, and this isn't fair. Maybe I personally should have like. I need to watch this like again and again. I need to do multiple viewings of this before I probably was like, okay, I can accept this. But as of now, I kind of just want to like see a production of this because things go by so quickly, like especially since it's in real time. Whereas in a play on stage, they have one stage. They obviously have sets, but then they quickly have to change sets and whatnot. And I can buy that and then let my imagination do the rest. This is like, oh, now my imagination doesn't have to do this. Now I just have to see what's going on. It kind of feels a little jarring. So it's like, but that's why I like theater, because you can, you have to imagine the stage as like a real place or whatnot, and let your imagination go from there with the limitations that they have set. Whereas this, they're in a real, well, even though it was filmed in Hungary, it's like they're in a like real looking place and whatnot. And so even when they're singing to everybody, it does feel a little jarring for me. I'll say that I couldn't really get into some of the diegetic stuff, but eventually I guess accepted it. But yeah, it was for like again, this is like my first time watching it through, so I apologize. I don't really like know any of the songs and didn't have the nothing really stuck out. I wish any ones that's this may sound a little bit like insensitive, but anything that sounded Latin, I was a little more into, because the more Latin stuff, I was like, okay, let's maybe hear what hopefully that's what the Argentinian sound is. Probably isn't. Apologies in that.
Probably not.
But I would like to have that more. In fact, I almost had it where I was like, I kind of want to like hear this in Spanish. I'd really want to hear this whole thing, or in Argentinian Spanish. Excuse me.
I know there is a Spanish version. I think there's a Spain Spanish version and a Mexican version. I doubt I'm sure there is an Argentine version, but probably not like a big one. But I know there are some versions in Spanish.
Yeah, I was curious how Isaac was going to react because, I didn't warn you that it's more operatic than a regular musical in that style. And I remember the first time I watched it, it did jar me for a little bit. I was kept like, okay, is this like Are they just going to do like a 20-minute long, mostly music, and then kind of slow down to a regular style musical? And I kept kind of waiting, and it took me a while to get into the style that it was going for and to be able to pick out individual songs because they all kind of just bleed into each other. So it's tough to, okay, like when did this song end? When did this one start? And we get tons and tons of little reprieves in just for dialogue and stuff. So it's more on repeat viewings that I can pick out the ones that really stand out, and knowing what I'm getting into helps me immediately kind of ease into the style that they're going for. And you mentioned the look of the film too. I feel like that's one of the things that I really enjoy each time I go back to it is great period costumes, the cinematography by one of my favorite cinematographers from this period, Darius Kandij. I think he just does such a great job with the kind of warm palette to it. And Isaac, you may know him from Alien Resurrection. That's where I first saw his work.
Interesting.
Yeah, not a favorite movie of mine, but I think it looks incredible.
I guess I will to add to myself as well, or add to my comment. At the same time, I was also a bit kind of disappointed with the color palette of the film because I was like, oh, I like how it's it's treated as like it's grounded. The color palette seems not flamboyant or over the top, and I don't know. I never watched Newsies. I've seen the musical on stage, but for this, I kind of wanted again to see this in on theater instead, or in the theater, excuse me, on stage, because I feel like the sets would be a lot more colorful and bombastic. Maybe not like too bombastic, of course, but the color palette here, like in comparison to what it would be on stage, feels muted. And so I was like, oh, I kind of like, especially with knowing Sir Weber, he loves he loves to go over the top sometimes, or he likes to make things larger than life. And so the songs didn't feel for me like they felt a part of the environment, where the environment felt very bleak and muted. Maybe I'm incorrect in that, but just like I kind of wanted to see a lot more color to this film.
Oh, that's interesting perspective.
Or have the colors stand out and pop more. Excuse me. How about that? Not that it's downright gray and ugly or anything like that. Just I wanted it to like burst out and like you can see all the color there, like it was a Joe Schumacher movie.
Oh no, I definitely wouldn't want that. That sounds like well, maybe I won't say that, but
a recipe in the making for disaster.
Yeah, I didn't want to pick on the poor guy Schumacher. And hey, we might pull out one of his movies one day. I think he did the Phantom of the Opera.
Yes, he did,
from the 2000s. So we might revisit that. But no, I quite like the color palette of the movie. I think I don't know. I was gonna say I feel like it has kind of a Latin America feel, because I feel like a lot of their movies that I see are filled with tons of browns everywhere. A lot of that clothing, more muted colors is just what I think of when I think of a lot of those of their cinema. But to be fair, I feel like most of the cinema that I've seen from that part of the world is in black and white, so maybe that's why it's in my head in that way. I think about it.
Brianna, my question is, how many tracks are there in this album and or this musical?
That's a great question. I have no idea offhand, but I can look it up.
Because like there was track after track after track. I mean, they were pumping this stuff out. I'm like, holy smokes! I've heard like this like definitely trumps Joseph when it comes to musical numbers. Like I think this has like twice as many.
Okay, so the movie soundtrack has 31 tracks.
Yikes.
Whereas the concept album only has 23 tracks.
Okay, interesting.
And it's probably the same songs.
That's true.
More or less, probably just they split them differently.
I didn't think of that. That makes sense. And the other thing is that I don't know if the rock opera or just concept album has this, but I didn't realize this when I realized this first, but then I forgot about it. I was wondering where like the act would split, like where the end of Act 1 would be and where the beginning of Act 2 would be.
That's a good question. Like I said, I haven't seen it on stage. I'd like to, but I always miss it. But I feel like it would maybe be like right after he becomes president.
Yeah, no, I could see that.
Yeah.
You know what? I think it would be after "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." That seems like an intermission moment.
Yeah, that song from my first viewing stood out immediately. I could see why that was maybe the. I'm not sure if they had a single for this movie. I could see that being the one that they would put out because it has a lot of power. It feels more distinct on its own.
That's the one that I sang in the talent show when I was a kid.
Nice.
I just, the idea of it now, like looking back, just like this 9-year-old singing "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina," just it was probably so funny to the people.
I mean, yeah, I'd just be like, where is this from? Like, I remember one of my siblings' classmates singing Ring of Fire, but like, and he had the whole like get up as well. He didn't have a guitar or anything like that, but he was singing that. So it's like, yeah, but I wouldn't have known clue if I was in your class or in your school of what you were like singing. I'm like, what the hey is she singing?
It's a long song too. And I sang the whole thing.
Oh, there you go.
It's probably like, I don't know, let me see how long the track is. I'm curious. 5 minutes. Yeah, that's pretty long for a talent show.
That is long, definitely.
Yeah, you have commitment right there. I tell you what.
Of course, I probably skipped any like instrumental gaps.
Now, was it this version or was it from the concept album?
No, I actually didn't listen to the concept album until I was an adult. So it was either this version or possibly the Broadway version, because that's the CD my mom listened to the most, I think. But I think they're pretty much the same. Like the musical backing would be different, but I was singing a cappella, so that wouldn't be relevant.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a strong song, and that's one of the few moments where we get some more extended dialogue with, was it Perron's presidential speech?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that was pretty much the only like spoken dialogue in the whole movie.
Yeah, that was more than like 2 words. Because every now and again we would just like punctuate. But yeah, they really slowed things down for that.
And I like that her speech was longer than his.
Yeah, and I always point out anytime I watch it that I hate the chanting that they do when they do the Perron chanting. But then once they start bleeding in the Evita with it too, and the two of them are going, ooh, it makes my skin crawl. that chanting.
I like it. I wish people chanted like that in real life.
I just sing chanting.
Brianna!
Oh golly, I die of embarrassment. It actually, when I heard that distinctly, I almost heard it almost in like a haunting sense.
Mm-hmm.
At least
Definitely.
The way I think that was intentional, of course. Sorry if that's I'm Captain Obvious here, but I was like, I wonder if that's supposed to be like haunting or something like that. Like there's a very like sinister undertone with the way the music was and how their voices were. It just sounded like. I'm not calling it a cult or anything like that, but definitely sounded like it was foreshadowing for their downfall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. And like not about what you said about cult, like it kind of makes sense because like she had a slightly cultish following, right? Like people like revered her as a saint almost. Well, not even almost.
Yeah. I don't mean that to the actual Evita. I got to make that clear. I'm just talking about in this film.
Of course.
Which, is an adaptation of the actual person herself. And I also say downfall because, I mean, we have evidence of that in the play itself or the opera itself, because there's that song beforehand where you just see there's coups and there's usurps and like, somebody just replacing each other. So it's like, well, it's bound to happen. That's actually what I thought was going to like go with, because I didn't look up, the actual real life story. So like, I think towards the end I was like, all right, I gotta just check. I'm kind of interested. This movie's piqued my interest in it. So I was wondering if they ever got usurped, and similar to like what happened with Anastasia and her family, if they got there was a coup d'etat in Argentina, or at least during their reign or during their presidency, excuse me.
Yeah, and I feel like they set up right from that Kapow Die song that maybe Perron's not the best dude, because they say like, oh yeah, he came up under the front row of watching Mussolini rise to power and was a wannabe dictator.
And in the concept album, they said something about Hitler too, but they didn't put that in. I wish I could remember the exact line.
There was no way they were going to put that in there.
Yeah.
I do love in that Kapow Die song when they're talking about the military coup, and they're like, they didn't feel they need to be elected. I think that's a funny way to put a coup. But yeah, no, it sounds like poor Argentina. They had some rough times with
Oh yeah, there's a line in the original of that song. I just find it so random where they say dictators don't grow on skis.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Because there was some part about Perron like skiing with like Hitler and Mussolini or something.
Oh,
Dang. Wow.
they did their research.
That's why I'm like, I kind of wish that like more of that came into the movie or the stage musical, because it's just so, there was some almost like absurd lines.
Definitely, yeah.
See, and I agree. Actually, what I wanted to point out when you guys said like this is who Senor Banderas is supposed to be, I was like, okay, if it is supposed to be Che Guevara, it's like it actually I could see it from a humorous if they were going in that humorous standpoint,
Exactly.
I could sort of see like, and the narrator is Che Guevara, and it's like, okay, that is kind of funny, like that like
Mhm.
if you treat it in like almost like a farce or parody sort of way, it would make sense, but. That's the thing where I'm not saying this is an identity crisis, but it's like what's parody and or like what's making fun of something and then what's trying to be serious. Because for most part, a lot of the stuff, like I mean, I don't know if this is like full on satire, but it does feel like it's playing the whole thing straight.
I think there's a lot more satire to the original, but from what I understand, even when they translated it from album to stage musical, they took a lot of that out and definitely played it a lot more
I
serious.
see.
Which is, I mean, it's a really great story as is, but the satirical elements are fun too, and I would have liked to see that play out.
Yeah, you can definitely feel the sprinkles of it here or there, especially, on repeated viewings, super paying attention to the dialogue in the songs. You can feel the crafty, kind of clever jokes hidden in there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, if I take the Antonio Banderas character here is just kind of the face of Argentina. Whatever emotions.
The everyman.
Yeah, the everyman.
Yeah, and I think there's some comedy there, but it's definitely like he's supposed to be, a fairly serious character in the movie, I think. And I like the more times I watch it, I feel like the more I just see like it's interesting how they were able to take one character and be able to represent like how much people loved her and hated her in one person.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's that one moment when I wish I could remember when he's like he's outside of their place, he's holding onto the bars, holding on really tight like he wants to like wring her neck. And he's like, "Oh, when you're in there," and he seems so angry.
Oh, it's right after she kicks out the British people.
Yeah, and there's just this seething.
Oh right, yeah.
Seething kind of hate to him. I was like, damn, that's some intense performance there from.
Yeah, and then like a couple scenes later, he's like dancing in the fountain, and all happy.
Yeah. I noticed that too.
Being like, Ava.
if somebody didn't know that he's supposed to be like the narrator and the everyman, they're like, what?
Wow,
what?
This guy's really going back and forth.
Who is this guy supposed to? And you're supposed to take this, as an opera and in a different sort of like story structure and also like it's a different type of storytelling than what people are normally familiar with. So just understand like he's the narrator and he's a face in the crowd as we said in every person.
Yeah, if she's the face of Argentina, he's kind of the heart. And they're always kind of pushing against each other. That's what I really like.
Yeah, I really.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I really love their waltz and how they like have them kind of like confront each other at the end there.
Yeah, that's right where I was going. Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, he gets beaten down by the cops and kind of passes out, and then she passes out from her own undisclosed illness for this movie. And yeah, they kind of meet in that space.
Cancer, I think.
Yeah, I like that waltz a lot too. I think that was a really pretty little moment. It actually reminded me of that. I think it was, I can't remember what kind of dance it was in Singing in the Rain, if you remember that, when the two characters go into this space and the woman is wearing this super duper long flowing dress. It reminded me of that little moment.
Maybe it's a waltz.
But I like both in both movies. I think it's nice having that very different kind of aesthetic and much more slowed down style. Because yeah, this thing does move super duper fast throughout. It's constantly moving, it feels like.
Yeah, and I feel like, I don't know, obviously every time you watch a movie like you focus on different things, but I feel like I've never noticed before in their waltz how like the setting changes in different lines of the song. I literally never noticed that until today.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I quite like that too.
Oh no, I noticed. Yeah, I remember that. I noticed how like because they revisit sets, if I recall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I guess I'm sure I have noticed it before but never thought about it, but yeah, it was definitely like something new to think about with this watching.
Yeah, and I just realized I don't think we've mentioned at all. We mentioned Perron kind of off to the side, but not really talked about Jonathan Pryce playing this role. I do have to play my meme for the podcast as it always comes up. Jonathan Pryce does have a Doctor Who connection. Before the show came back in 2005, he showed up in this little famous comedy sketch written by a later Doctor Who showrunner called Curse the Fatal Death. And he plays a main villain in that, and he's super duper funny. People have always wanted him to return to Doctor Who proper ever since being in that, but he's never done it.
Could he be a doctor?
He's maybe a bit too old now. He's probably quite slowed down for the production of Doctor Who, but
No, that's fair.
yeah, he was a Bond villain. He was in famous Pirates of the Caribbean too. This guy, he's had quite the career.
Brazil,
of course, yeah.
So up front, the first fellow that Evita is with, I actually thought was Jonathan Pryce.
Oh no,
just with like a either makeup on or something like that. And then like
That guy has such a funny look to him too.
and I was like, is that supposed to be Jonathan Pryce? And then later, like when he comes out as put it on, I'm like, oh, that's that. Okay, never mind. Whoops. But they do look similar. I was like, oh, they kind of
Really?
look. I think they do.
oh, I think the other guy.
Well, I guess she has a type.
And this is mean to the actor. I think the other guy has kind of a bit of like a rodent kind of shape to him,
Yeah, no,
and
totally.
he's got such a Weasley performance too.
Well, and I mean, I'm sure they casted him that way on purpose because that's kind of the sense you were supposed to get from him.
Yeah, but I quite like him.
And speaking of him, I loved I loved when they met at that fundraiser, and he was like, "Your act hasn't changed much either."
Yeah,
You
Yes.
yeah, that was a lot of fun.
that was I like that.
Yeah, and this viewing today was the first time I realized how much her family kind of sticks with her throughout it, and how much her brother is like her manager and her friend in arms to.
Yeah, I'm not sure I ever noticed that before either, because there was parts where he's like literally delivering men
Yeah.
to her, like, "Oh, here's your next one."
I just found out this guy's single and he's got some power. See what you can wring out of him. Which I kind of appreciate that he's just, he's always there in the background if you notice him. Always at her side.
Indeed.
Yeah, fun little detail.
And her other sisters.
Yeah, and her sisters
Yeah.
too. Yeah, and it's nice because they don't comment on it, but they're just always there.
Yeah. And there you go. She's always holding on to her roots, not just her love of the working class, but her own family. And
Her hate of the middle class.
there you go.
One of the things that I was really trying hard to, and again, this is probably something that I'd have to do on like second watch or later watches, was trying to figure out what was actually like sung, and what was ADR'd.
That's interesting.
Because I think there may have been like one song or two where it was sung live, which was I think towards towards the end. I think when they're talking about Evita becoming vice president, and then Jonathan
Yeah.
Pryce is in that like chamber or in that room with like the boardroom or whatever with all those other members of parliament or whomever council, and I think he starts singing. I think that's like him doing it live, whereas a lot I was like, okay, because especially in the first or when I first heard Banderas sing, I was like, okay, this isn't live, right? This is all just like pre-recorded, correct? Where he's singing after the fact, like in a booth.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, there's a couple little brief, like interstitial moments between scenes when Che will be talking to the camera or singing to the camera, where it doesn't sound like it has this. Because a lot of the songs have this almost kind of, I don't know how to put it, almost like an echoed quality to them, or just you can hear the space that they're in when they're singing it. And every now and again, you can hear that there's none of that on his voice as he's delivering those little bits to connect to the next scene. I'm pretty sure that that moment when he's kind of seething in rage at her holding on to the gate there, that, if my memory is correct, sounded like it was just him singing on set.
Well, it would make sense for the little bits where it's like not a full-on song.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to sing there.
Yeah, and I prefer that. I understand why they don't do that in a lot of movies, but I like the kind of more raw feel that you get with that. But it's easy to get why they don't do it.
Yeah, it's understandable. Especially for this movie because like the songs are so big.
Yeah, and so they take place over so many different locations since everything's like a montage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a good point too.
I also, this may sound cringy, but I also was thinking like, okay, how'd they like direct this? Like how did this actually go about behind the scenes? Like, is it just like Madonna there singing to all the extras, or is she just like mouthing it and everybody's supposed to react?
yeah.
Oh, I wondered that too. I mean, I would want to sing. I feel like it's way easier than mouthing it. But
Yeah, I would think so too. And I was even thinking just how much work it would be because everything is in such montages, so many sets, so many extras. I was like, wow, this feels super lavish. Like, I wonder how much they spent on this thing because it feels like a lot.
yeah, it does.
Oh, well, I did start talking a little bit about Jonathan Pryce earlier, and I wanted to bring up just because I will say that I quite like him in this movie. I think I enjoy his voice, I enjoy the chemistry, and the fact that he kind of turns into kind of like the whipping boy for Evita. Because at first he seems like an ambitious politician, but then once he meets her, it's like his ambition completely falls off, and he's just like lost in the glow of her. All he wants to do is just stare
Yeah.
at her all day.
It's so interesting when, he was literally like, they told us straight up he was working with Mussolini and wanted to do the same thing. And then he's like, you know what though? Like, maybe we should just not. Like, maybe we should just quit.
Yeah, let's go to a different country and just stay on the beach together and just live out our lives. And I like that when because I think he's in prison when she comes to visit him and she's saying that.
Mm.
And his music's kind of like sad, like a little bit of a somber tone. And then it switches to her POV and like the hard rock kicks in and suddenly she's all harsh. Like, oh, sometimes I feel that way too, but
I sometimes get those nightmares too.
yeah. No, that's pretty fun.
So, according to thenumbers.com, sorry for if this is a tangent,
Sure.
but according to thenumbers.com, production budget, $55 million.
Oh, wow, well, they got a lot out of it, that's for sure.
Definitely. I mean, I don't know how many people went underpaid or didn't get paid at all. So,
Yeah, who knows where they're shooting this? What country?
Hungary and some of the some of the when they were doing the El Presidente speeches or whatnot on the balcony. Apparently, they were in Argentina.
Because I was going to say, I know Darius Kandij was he was mainly working in Europe at this time. That's why Alien Resurrection got him, because they shot in Europe, and I'm assuming this was the same.
Oh, and yeah, and what is it like? What's that studio in London? Shepperton? No, Sapperton? No.
Sapperton sounds right. Yeah, at least for one of them. But I did want one little knock for Jonathan Pryce, and I'm sure this is not his fault. Just knowing the man from his other work, knowing that he's bald. Every time I look at him with the hair that they plastered on his head, I'm like, couldn't we have got a better wig on this guy? This looks so. Every time I look at it, something about it just puts me off. Got a phony look to it. I don't know if you guys had that problem, but I fixate on it.
It didn't really bother me. The real guy has a similar hairline, but not really the same hair. I'm just looking at him now.
Yeah, maybe they tried their best.
But he was a weird kind of guy in real life, because I remember reading, I didn't look this up recently, so I could have the details wrong, but I remember reading that, like, he kept her casket, like, in his house for a long time after she died.
You mean President Perón, correct?
Yeah.
Not Jonathan Pryce.
Yeah, he kept the casket from this movie.
No, not Jonathan. He got Eva Peron's casket and brought it to his house.
He really wanted to be in character.
No, but actually, I remember. I don't know what order this happened in, but I know that there was a point where he like kept her in his house, but there was also a point where her body went missing for a long time, like decades.
Yes, I read that up too.
Oh, weird.
I don't know if like he had her body first and then it went missing, or when they found it he got it, but
like it went apparently on tour or something like that. Well, like stolen. I went all over Argentina, then it ended up in Spain at some point, but then it was finally returned and rested in Buenos Aires.
Yeah, Big Apple. Yeah, that's fucked up. Yeah. Weird folks.
But he was president for a long time after, and again, this is just going off memory. I didn't look it up recently, but I think his wife, after Ava died, became vice president and eventually became president after he died.
Oh, that's interesting.
Wow, very nice.
And from what I remember, family telling me, like, there's even like a party, I don't know if there still is, that was like Peronism.
Yes, that's a apparent thing that's still like their version of their political party. Yeah, it still exists.
Interesting. Yeah. But yeah, I do remember my uncle telling me that when he was a kid in school there, like, they weren't allowed to say anything bad about her. This was when she was alive. They would like get in trouble if anybody said anything bad about her.
Yeah, well, they should have. Maybe they should have brought that government over to Paris when they were calling her a whore. I love that line when she's like, "They called me a whore. They actually called me a whore." Then the weird guy with the eye patch next to her, he's like, "Oh, ignore them. They still call me a general."
I think it was Italy.
Italy.
Yeah. Italy first, then Paris, because Paris is where she like
right.
is in the opera,
where she got sick.
and then like fainted, which I guess is her first signs of cancer.
And I love Madonna's face during that scene when he's like, "Oh yes, they still, they're just silly. They still call me Admiral, even though I left the sea long ago." You look at her face; she just looks like perplexed. Like, what? Like, what are you saying? So many fun little bits. And I love one of my favorite roles for Antonio Banderas in the background is the projectionist during all that.
Yeah, when he's just making his little commentaries.
Yeah, he's getting jokey there too, and he's like, "Oh, they hate him in Italy because they say he's like Mussolini. Can't think why." His delivery that was quite funny. And I like that whole little Rainbow Tour song. I like that one.
Yeah.
Especially when those two officials are convinced that like it was successful.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was funny because it's like, I feel like it was successful overall. I don't see why there was any debate just because she got sick.
Well,
and I mean, yeah, they didn't like her in Italy, but she went to France and they liked her there.
Yeah, and she went and was rude to the Brits, or the Brits were rude to her, and then she kicked them out of the country. Was that the progression, or I didn't know which one came first?
Well, that was more because, like, I don't think that had anything to do with the Rainbow Tour thing.
Yeah, I just can't remember what order it happened in the movie, but I know they point that out.
Oh,
it was after she got home.
Yeah, after because she comes home after Paris, like when she faints in Paris, and then I guess she goes to England or somewhere with the British flag there, and then like
no, it was in Argentina. It was just like where the
like a British embassy. Okay,
I don't know if they were actually like occupied but like essentially, yeah.
Okay, and that's why all the chairs were empty because I guess they're rude to her. She's like, "Get them all out. Screw these Brits."
Yeah, she kicked them out.
Yeah, which they're happy about. Yeah, and I really didn't know too much about Argentina in general, and I'm of course not taking this as a historical document, but it also piqued my interest the first time I saw it. I'm like, oh, I had no idea about this couple here and their history, or necessarily the turmoil politically with all the revolutions going on over there. So
I mean, I guess in a way, like it's a good introduction to that. Not so much like saying like, oh, it's like you said, it's a historical fact. It's actually maybe like a good introduction for people to, whet their appetite and be like, all right, like this whole thing is complicated. This is supposed to be like this isn't. I don't know if this is the greatest hits or life and death of, but it's definitely like this is a story of Evita. Go look it up, and it's a lot more complicated than the stage production is. But yeah, here's a sample.
Yeah, and like a lot of that stuff, I guess. I mean, I don't know a lot about it because my mom obviously left Argentina when she was 5, so she's not going to have a strong memory. But I know that the reason that they left Argentina was because all that kind of stuff was still going on, and like guerrilla warfare and stuff. And I remember either my mom or my grandma told me that like the main reason they left is because there were always like people like coming door to door looking for like people who were hiding from the military and like going through people's houses and like hurting their kids. And so they actually like I don't know if they were like refugees, but I know that they like fled Argentina on a Japanese like freighter and like came up to Vancouver on that.
Jeez.
Which is kind of interesting. Yeah.
Holy smokes.
And that was in the early 70s, so clearly there was a lot still going on there.
That was still happening. Holy crap.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed that it's reached a more peaceful time these days. Yeah.
Well, my mom has a cousin that's still living there, and I have her on Facebook. She seems okay.
That's good.
I've never met her.
Well, I mean, Argentina is a big place, so it depends, I guess, on the area.
That's true.
Yeah, and I enjoy the look at the kind of class structures there, and the different ways they frame them with the songs. I think is fun, and I like the social kind of gender politics stuff with them looking down on her for using all these men, using her sexuality to propel herself into fame.
Mm-hmm. Even though he was clearly using her too.
Exactly. Yeah. All these there's a whole bunch of creepy dudes falling at her heels, just waiting for their chance. And
well, not even just using her sexually, but like Juan Perón was using her like clearly to.
Yeah.
Who knows if he would have become president without her like rallying for him?
Oh, it's at least according to this story, definitely not.
Yeah.
Because it was. I mean, they had to do their little workers' revolution that she spearheaded in order to get him out.
Mm-hmm. But then you don't know because like part of the reason that the military was unhappy with him was because of her. So maybe that part never would have happened. So who knows?
That's true. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think all that stuff's fun. I like the way they play, and I like the. Oh, I forget which song it was now. What the name of it was. When we first see her arriving with that kind of soon-to-be washed-up musician And almost immediately, the first bar they go into, she's dancing with another man, and then it's on to the next one, then on to the next one. I like the way they...
Yeah, and they do her little montage.
Yeah. I like the way they play that.
And then it ends in a restaurant with all the has-beens there, and then Banderas kicks them all out.
Yeah, and they're singing in their little chorus boy group.
Yeah. That was pretty fun.
According to this adaptation, I have no idea if that happened in real life, but I see it as, I guess, a strength for Evita for using what she naturally has, and it got her there. So it's like, I don't see a problem with that.
Now, which part do you think didn't happen in real life? That she was doing this with the men, or that they were all hanging out there? And...
No, I think in real life the men were at the bar singing.
I'm not saying anything at all. I agree with Brianna there. Yep. All the men just like...
I wish that happened in real life.
I wish so too.
Hey, did you I hear you were with Evita once. Yeah, I was with her. And it's like, hey bud, I gotta join you as well, because it's the same thing. Same here, buddy.
Yeah, did you bring your present for, like we have?
I like the first guy where Che just calls him whoever. He doesn't even get a name in that song.
Yeah, the photographer.
Oh, the sleazy photographer.
I know, and I was thinking to myself when he first came on, like, wow, he's just hanging out at those auditions, like, looking for a young girl to prey on. Jeez. But then he immediately gets her, like, in all these magazines. I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, at least he was actually a serious connection somehow.
The brother probably vetted him first before she actually took him to the bedroom.
Yeah. He was like, okay, just go hang out outside this audition.
Yeah, and again, it is... These are a lot of sleazy dudes with their leery eyes, and she's supposed to be quite young here, and they're just falling on her heels.
Well, when she first meets Perron, and he's like, maybe you're my reward.
Yeah, or even the musician at first, he's like, ambition in the cities, it's one thing for a man, but you're a woman. Not even a woman. Barely more than a child. It's like, hey, didn't you just sleep with her?
After he sleeps with her.
Yeah, exactly.
And then for some reason takes her home to his wife. Like, I don't get what was going on there. Like, why didn't he just leave her at the bar?
Maybe he was hoping he can argue with his wife to let her move in with them.
But he immediately just walked in and left her. The woman just, like, gives her a death glare and closes the door.
There was a thought I had where it's like, okay, is she gonna try to, like, does she actually love Perron, or is she gonna keep trying to, like, move up to the top, or is this the top? There was a point in my mind where it's like, but they obviously didn't go anywhere with that, where it's now like, okay, she's with him, he's now become president, and now we see what happens from there. So it's like, okay, I guess, yeah, okay, never mind. that obviously wasn't the case.
Well, yeah, because I mean that basically was the top, right? Unless she's gonna now let me seduce the King of England. I mean, I guess the top would be her becoming president, but who knows? Since his later wife did become president, that probably would have happened for her if she hadn't died.
Yeah. And maybe she realized the love of the people. She started looking more in their direction. Was like, hey, what can I do?
Yeah.
Went for sainthood.
I felt like, movie version wise, at least, I felt like she didn't necessarily love Perron, but she definitely grew to, like, really love, like, just being, like, for the people in that way. And, like, being loved by them.
There was that weird scene. It was right after Don't Cry For Me, Argentina, I think, where we see Perron, like, coming to her bedroom that night, and the door's locked, and he looks, like, dejected.
Yeah, she's like, well, I got what I needed. Don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, but then they have a perfectly fine relationship going forward. I was confused by what that scene was supposed to say there.
Well, he probably just went out and got his new, like, call girl.
Oh, there you go.
Well, hang on a second there, Caleb. Like, because it does seem like, they are always, like, perfect with each other. We only ever see that in, because that was the one scene I also literally just played for me. That was in privacy.
Yeah.
This is like everything we see, like where you say, like, at least from my perspective, perfectly fine relationship. They're both in public. They both.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I guess we never see them in the bedroom.
The only time we see them in private is right when she's, like, on her deathbed.
Yeah.
Did they? I don't know if.
And that's when she's, like, realizing that he loves her.
Exactly. I don't know if they had children at all, if they had offspring, but, like,
no.
At least in this, it doesn't indicate if they did.
By the way, I love how much she uses Perron's love in her political speeches.
I know. And yet is somehow surprised at the end when she finds out that he actually does love her.
Yeah, maybe she just got so used to using it as a line that she forgot that it was real.
Yeah.
Like, she's so numb to the fact that she's had to, like, hopefully it does not come across as misogynistic, but like that she's been sleeping with other guys, that she is only doing it to further herself, that she doesn't even she has like turned off to that kind of stuff where it's not romantic, it's just like for her business.
Yeah, it's like a tool.
Yeah, maybe she doesn't know. Yeah, can't imagine what it's like to have a relationship that isn't transactional.
Well, she said in her little montage, she said, like everyone does it or whatever.
Yeah.
Like she could. I don't think that she could probably even fathom the idea of a relationship that wasn't based on just like getting ahead.
Yeah, even I find it interesting that even her relationship with the people, it's like she views herself as an object for them. It's like I'm the hope, I'm the face that they need, but not really a real person for them in that way.
She has become a symbol for the people themselves, to bring together and to keep them, I guess, happy, and bring them happy. Like you said, bring them hope for those struggling.
Yeah, it's interesting that she seemed to immediately recognize that too.
Yeah, but I did find it. I started to laugh when she would do the songs, and we'd see her every time the same line, like, "Come on, if of course Perron loves you, if how could he not if he loves me?" I thought that was funny how much she'd use that and the way they would play it in the songs. And every time it would get the same. Everyone would be waving their kerchiefs in the air, or...
But I mean, you saw how all those like upper class people absolutely like detested her. Like, it was probably just completely unheard of in their society for the classes to mix that way.
Yeah.
So it would have felt like such a big thing.
Oh, and I love that moment during her, because she does her "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina" speech, and then she goes back in with the rest of the kind of elites, and then she runs back out to give another little minor speech, and she's talking about she could take all the money away from the oligarchs, and then we cut to them and they're like,
oh yeah, and everyone's looking around like, even Perron's like looking at her, like he's smiling, but then he's like looking around.
It's like, oh, look how spirited she is, but she, some might stab me in the back right now. I thought that was pretty funny. And I think it's shortly after that when we see them, or maybe it was before in the movie, when we see the horse golf. What'd you call that again? The elite game.
Isn't that polo?
Maybe, I don't know.
Oh yeah, it was polo.
And I was like, look at these rich fools.
You've never seen polo in a movie before?
If I have, I don't remember.
It was in Transformers Last Night in the beginning. Was how we introduced that, I guess, female character.
Well, I was thinking only the richest of the rich play golf on horses. So.
It's mallets, actually, not golf, not golf clubs.
That's probably not necessarily true. Like, you probably don't have to own a horse to play polo.
Hey, I'm buying it. I'm buying it.
They rent horses.
Yeah, I mean, golf is already like seen as a rich person sport.
Exactly. That's why I say yeah. Now you had the extra hurdle of having to have a horse there too.
I feel like it's just like a very British thing.
Who's got the caddy? Is the caddy riding around a horse too? I know it's not golf. They probably don't have caddies. Oh, where do we go from here? I feel like I've gone through a lot of my notes here. So if you guys have anything.
Where do we go from here? That's a line in the song that's at the end of the movie.
Oh.
I like I don't know what the song's called. I mean, I'm looking at this right now, so obviously stop me before I start like just doing a commentary of this movie. But I did like how she goes into detail about keeping up appearances and getting like all the kind of juxtaposing, but like she gets all the glamorous attires and fanciful expensive pieces of clothing and jewelry to present herself in front of all like the poor people who just wear commoners clothing.
Yeah, I think that's the song I was talking about when she presents herself as an object for them.
There you go.
Yeah, I quite like that.
Well, I never understood that line in the song where she says, although I'm dressed up to the nines at sixes and sevens with you. I don't know what sixes and sevens with you means.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either.
Does she mean that they're dressed up to the sixes and sevens?
I that's what I wondered. If she's like, even though I'm looking like this, I'm still there with you, even though you look like, 6 and a 7. I was like, is that a backhanded yeah, I wasn't sure.
Or does she mean that she dresses lower than the nines when she's hanging out with them?
Yeah, I put on my cheap clothes when I'm with you cheap people. But I was thinking, looking at all their political banners and signs, I was like, I feel like we don't see this kind of thing anymore. We're walking around with just like a person just face on a sign that you're walking around with.
In Latin America, you see it. I see it in Mexico when we go.
Yeah.
In Peru, when I was in Peru, there was an election happening at the time, which was kind of a big deal because they were like, oh, like, you're not allowed to, like, talk to any of the locals about their election because we don't want you to, like, influence them. Because we were, like, up in, like, the sticks, you know? So, like, there were a lot of people who would feel very influenced by, like, a Westerner being like, you should vote for this person. But anyways, my point is, like, you did see a lot of those political posters everywhere. So I think it's still a common thing there.
Oh, that's interesting. I kind of like them, especially like the more drawn version. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and they were like that. It was a very similar thing. Or even like, I don't know if you would call this graffiti, but like drawn like directly on the buildings.
Oh.
Okay, so just a potentially just quickly looking this up, it with like Dressed to the Nines or the Sevens.
Oh.
Potentially maybe related to the 7 Deadly Sins.
Oh.
How?
Because it's all the vices. It's all like I can see it now. I can fill in the blanks where the 7 Deadly Sins are kind of as Caleb would say, pleasures of the flesh, where you get enjoyment from all this other stuff. So gluttony, was it envy,
Vanity,
jealousy? I think vanity is not one of them. Lust, 7 others. I used to know this a lot beforehand, but Dressed to the Nines, I guess, like ramps it up, like adds 2 more to the list.
Yeah, I don't know about this one. I don't know about this.
Potentially, I don't know. Like, you put a pin in that, put an asterisk, grain of salt.
Oh, okay. Well, this is a totally different one than what you said, but I'm just looking at a forum, so it could be completely wrong. But I googled the lyrics, and this person is saying at 6s and 7s is actually a saying that means a state of total confusion and disorder or of disagreement between parties.
Interesting.
So maybe she's just trying to say, like, I'm dressed up to the nines in contrast with you who isn't.
Again, she's rubbing it in their face.
I have everything figured out, or at least all my things in order, whereas you guys are still disordered.
Yeah, kind of thing.
Oh, that's weird then. Tim Rice, what were you doing with that line?
I feel like he was just like, I need another like number idiom.
That's fair. I think there's a couple other lines in this and we question like, what does he mean by that? It's tough writing a movie or a concept album where it's just constant singing the whole way through. That's tough. Maybe we gotta cut in some breaks here or there. Remember we thought it was kind of creepy too when Evita is going to be a saint and the little kids were singing to her and like, whoa, we hope that we can be like you.
Oh, that's so creepy.
Yeah. Oh, that's what that was. Whoops, I did not realize they made her a saint.
Well, they didn't, but they wanted to. Like, there was talk of it.
Yikes.
Yeah, I guess this is just a representation that right before is when she fell ill, and so she couldn't do it. But yeah, I thought it was creepy, those kids, the way that they're standing there. I was like, oh man. And it was contrasted with...
Yeah, and they said, will you look upon me as your own and make me special?
Yeah, I was like, oh man. Then it was contrasted with the fascism. I guess it's not even fascism at this point.
There's a lot of interesting juxtaposition in that movie.
Yeah, with Che and his crowd getting beaten up and slashed by the horses. I'm pretty sure that's another moment when we see Che walking with the men. He looks at the camera and sings something. I'm pretty sure that was just in...
What is it? The part where he says "turn a blind eye"? But he says that more than once.
I think that might be another one too. I'm not sure though. But yeah, no, I don't really have too much more. I did love the line when they said that Evita is a fantasy in the bedroom and a saint. I feel like that should have been the tagline. If you wanted a more like body.
What about the part where they said her only good parts are between her thighs? She should stare at the ceiling, not reach for the sky.
Damn, that's something. And I like the one all the guys are like, Argentine men call it sexual shots. Someone has altered the rules. I like that too. Just the way they sing it, I thought was quite funny.
What about when they said tarts have become the set to know? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, I feel like they were always a set to know, but maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I love tarts.
There you go. Yeah. But yeah, any lingering thoughts from you guys before we move close to the end here?
I would like to say, why does Magaldi have to ring the doorbell at his own house?
Oh yeah, with his wife and kids. Well, like I said, maybe they're like, hey, we don't want him he's got all these girls coming around all the time, his mistresses, so maybe they keep the door locked and they don't give him a key anymore in case he gives one out. But I do love during the Buenos Aires Big Apple song, well, that she's got her family there too, and they're all just harassing him, like, take her with you. And he's like, oh, no, I couldn't do it. And yeah, her family's right in his face. I think that's fun.
That guy's like, why don't you be the man who discovered her? You'll never be remembered for your voice. And it was true in the end, because I'm pretty sure he's a real guy.
Oh, that's interesting. I guess it makes sense. Yeah. No, I like that song quite a bit. But I guess we have come around to the end here, and I guess we'll go into final thoughts. I know, Brianna, you don't much care for those, but do you have any final thoughts for this one? Final summation?
I liked how it started with her funeral and ended with her funeral, and like the casket procession thing.
Yep.
And I remember somebody when I was a kid telling me that line up to see her casket in real life, people stood in line for days to do that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I liked how it kind of like started and ended on the same note.
Yeah, I like that too.
And it ended so abruptly.
Would that be considered in medias res?
In a way. I think less so, just because it's more just kind of throwing you in and giving you a moment to feel confused before they pull you back. But yeah, and you'd say that you like this one quite a bit. Would you say it's one of your favorite musicals, that kind of thing?
Me?
Yeah, just for final thoughts.
Well, of course it's my favorite musical. Like, everybody knows that. I'm pretty sure I made that clear.
Well, yeah, that's the redundant part of the final thoughts is, you kind of repeat what you kind of just tie up what you've said in a bow just for the end.
What's the point of that?
Well, Isaac?
Why would I repeat myself on the same podcast where everybody already heard what I said?
Just in case anyone skipped to the end, like, should I really watch this movie?
They can skip back.
Reiteration. That's the whole key. I'm just like,
So to reiterate, let me just say everything I've already said in this whole podcast. It'll be another hour and a half. I hope you guys don't mind.
No, that would be really redundant. Yeah.
wasting time as if you were a college student who didn't know how to write a paper.
There you go.
Geez,
exactly.
Did I say that out loud? Where you're trying to just like waste a bunch of letters or waste a bunch of word counts so that you have you just like. And in conclusion, I'm just going to say the whole essay again so I can run this word count to 1,000 or 10,000, whatever it is.
So Caleb, what you can do is you can just loop everything we just did as my final thoughts.
I was going to say, now we're going to get emails from Isaac's professors. Like, that's why your essays are written like that. But how about you, Isaac? What are your final thoughts for this film here?
I think it just hit me as to why they cast Madonna for this role. Because, like, culturally, and I don't know.
Oh.
This okay, so hear me out.
Yeah.
This wouldn't work, I think, nowadays. Or I guess it could work nowadays, but you have to pick the right person. Like Madonna was everywhere. Like I said, she was the queen of pop.
Yeah.
So like everybody loved her. So that's why they cast her, because just to give like American audience members an understanding, like this is how important she was. Like everybody loves Madonna. Obviously, she had her controversies. So did
I can see
Evita herself probably did, the real life one. Excuse me. So it's like that's kind of why they did it. And so like I guess like if they wanted to do something, so not obviously to like a new version of Evita, but if they were to do something similar with somebody in like if they were going to do a musical like for say like Princess Diana, hear me out, they could use Taylor Swift for instance because she's huge. So it's like that's how like important Princess Diana was.
Oh, see, that's not quite the direction I thought you were going. I thought you were going to say, because with all these kind of moralistic elites criticizing her, like, oh, look at her, she's using her sexuality, she's low class.
Oh,
I was thinking you were saying that with Madonna because she was in her early days getting a ton of criticism for her sexuality.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, that's also a good point.
There was that, and I forgot about that, but I was just more thinking
you could use Britney Spears.
Yeah, Britney
yeah,
Spears.
exactly.
Yeah, no, that I never thought about that connection with Madonna and the actual historical figure, but yeah, no, that fits.
I would think that she probably related to her a lot.
Yeah.
I think that's what Caleb's favorite director Baz Luhrmann likes to do with music,
no.
where he likes to bring in like contemporary music of whatever age it is, and puts it in his movies just to give people a feeling for like how the music of the day felt, if that makes sense. So using modern hits, translating to what people of the day felt with the music of the day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Is that why he does that?
I don't know. That's just what somebody told me. So just
It
like,
makes
hey,
sense.
he's your favorite director. What are you talking about? You should know this.
But yeah, would you say that you would revisit this one, recommend it? Yeah, what do you got there?
I would actually sooner want to watch the stage adaptation of this, like watch it on stage before I go back to this. This is not like throwing it under the bus or the train, excuse me, at all, but just I kind of want to see a stage musical of this over the movie just to get what I was talking about, because I feel like all my imagination is sore, but I guess it's been too tainted with this movie and what it's like. This movie will make me think of the play over the stage itself. So it is what it is, though. I'm not like,
I recommend listening to the concept album.
Yeah,
there you go.
Check it out.
It's a good idea.
It's quite
I
cool.
think I will do that instead. Not instead.
And if I remember, it's like an all British cast, so their kind of accents bring a different flavor to it as well. If my memories are correct, Brianna, you probably know better than me.
I mean, I would assume. I don't know for sure.
Oh, but for my final summation, I'll say, yeah, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, I like it. You know, a light feeling it. Would definitely listen to some of those songs back, but I felt it was a little bit overlong, and it took me a while to get into the style.
You thought it was light?
A light feeling it for me, like light.
Oh.
I lightly liked it.
I thought you meant like you thought the story was light.
No.
I was like, wow, that's an interesting take.
Late Tay for Evita.
But I had my fourth viewing today, and many hours of hearing the music playing over the years. I'm sure I've heard all the songs, yeah, like 20 times or more each at this point, with just it playing in the car when we drive. So I feel like I've got a much stronger connection to it now, and going back and seeing the songs put back to the images, yeah, no, I like this one quite a bit. And I also echo again, to be redundant, that I really wish that they would do more movie musicals like this with the opera style.
I was gonna ask, because I know that like Tommy is a rock opera. Like, does it have dialogue?
Oh, that's a good question. I know that we watched that a few years ago, but I don't remember too well. Yeah, that one feels like it was mostly singing as well, now that you say that. Well, maybe one to revisit, potentially one day.
That could be fun for the podcast.
Yeah, have you ever seen Tommy, Isaac?
If I don't know if I have. I don't think I have, but can you give me a summary of what it's about? Is it about a real life person, or what is it?
A summary of Tommy.
No, it's like about this guy who like sees his mom get murdered or something, and then he goes like what's the word? Like deaf and mute, but on purpose. What's the word that I'm looking for?
Psychosomatic?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like he selective, maybe. I'm thinking of like selective mutism. But yeah, like he goes deaf and blind and mute, but like it's just in his head, and it's a really weird musical. I think it's The Who.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, and it's a crazy movie. Elton John shows up. I'm pretty sure that's where the song Pinball Wizard premiered in.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
he has a crazy sequence in that, and the whole movie's just bizarre.
And it's another one that came from a concept album, I assume.
Oh, okay.
I'm just assuming. I mean, usually I feel like rock musicals do come from concept albums most of the time.
Well, yeah, but potentially one to watch one day, but yeah, I would say absolutely, if you haven't seen Evita, check it out. I think it's well worth a watch, and yeah, I don't feel like it comes up too much. Like I said before we met, I'd never heard of it. Isaac, you said that you hadn't heard of it either.
Nope.
So it could use some more exposure, I think.
Although when I told my parents I was doing this tonight, they had heard of it.
Nice.
Saying that, yeah, it's a controversial movie.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, everybody that I've made watch it has liked it. Although, from what I like, people who are like big musical people, I feel like don't like it. Most people I've seen say that they think it's Andrew Lloyd Webber's weakest, which of course you can't decide that based on the movie version, anyways. But from what I've seen, like most like big musical people don't like it that much, but most like regular people like it.
No, I could definitely see if you're, not if you're not in the theater, you're gonna like it. If you are in theater, you're gonna love this film, or I guess this musical as well.
Well, I certainly love musicals, and I quite like this one. And yeah, that's all I got for it. But thank you, Brianna, for your suggestion. Very happy to, or your pick, I should say. Very happy to go back to this one and discuss with the two of you. Looking forward to Isaac, your next pick, which you said was Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Yeah, God, Caleb, get it right.
Hey, I've never seen it. I don't know. Maybe it's not going to be so amazing for me. Maybe I'll.
You actually have seen it because we've watched it together before.
Oh no, this is not a good sign for this.
So, plot twist, Caleb finds it very forgettable.
Oh no. Well, I guess I'll find out in a rewatch. Yeah, would you like to? Do you have any final words of wisdom for us, Isaac? Would you like to take us home?
I'll just give I don't know, I guess like an advertisement saying, go, if you're peeved off about this, go educate yourself. Go educate yourself on the real happenings of Evita Perón. Excuse me, and what that whole thing, because it is fascinating. I think it's truly fascinating. Go, look up Argentinian history, educate yourself so that you don't become ignorant. The next time, peace.